Any specific lease changes you brought from Sherman that you can bring to people?
It was just more organized, honestly.
Oh, okay. It wasn't
just
the clauses you're
the
talking about?
template. Like, they had like all of these clauses that I'm like, we had in our lease, but it was just way cleaner. It was lawyered up language. I'm like, ours was just like, make sure you don't burn trash, because we had tenants burning trash. So I'm like, and my dad was a genius because he was adding all of these clauses as he experienced it. Boom, it went in his lease.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
If you're listening to this podcast on July 13th, then tomorrow is InvestFest. On July 14th at Boom Island Brewing Company in Minnetonka, this is going to be one of the biggest real estate investing networking events of the year. We're co-hosting this with Shook Rentals and a bunch of other real estate investing meetups throughout the Twin Cities. You can go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com, scroll down to the InvestFest link to get tickets on Eventbrite. And then here's another cool thing. If you've ever wanted to be on our podcast, but maybe you feel like you don't have a full hour and a half's worth of material to talk about, Tim and I are going to be hosting mini podcasts. Come and tell your most like unhinged tenant story or crazy landlording story. We're going to be kind of off to the side. And then otherwise, this is a great way to experience some somewhat organized networking and just some of the cooler people in the Twin Cities as it relates to real estate investing will be there. So thank you for listening. Once upon a time, I thought I wanted to be a property manager. And so I started a property management business to go alongside my sales business. And I very quickly learned that property management is like the hardest thing ever. Yeah, you can manage your own place, right? You can manage your own 10 property portfolio. It's not that hard, but doing it at scale for other people and being compliant and oh my gosh, it is so difficult. And most people are not good at it. Straight up. Raise your hand if you don't like your property manager, right? John Scribante and the team at Real Property Management Viking do a really, really thorough job. Just type them into Google and read the reviews. They're getting 5-star reviews from their tenants, okay? And they're competitively priced, and they will give you a deal for being a podcast listener. So if you are looking for a property manager and you don't interview John with Real Property Management Viking, I don't know what to tell you. You're not listening. You got your head in the clouds. Come on now.
This is the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show. Real stories, real success in Twin Cities real estate. Join your hosts, Adam Tafel and Tim Swierczek, as they dive into the world of Twin Cities real estate investing. Together, they share valuable insights and practical tips to help both new and seasoned investors navigate the Minneapolis-St. Paul market. With a focus on relatable stories from real people, this show will
What's going on, Tim?
Hey, man. How's it going?
We got Jake Weierke today.
Yeah. He was a ball of energy.
Yeah, Jake's a talker. He was a fan of the podcast who reached out to us and told us a little bit about his situation, and yeah, he was fantastic. This is a story about a guy who takes over a family business and jumps right into property management. And that's what the focus of this episode is about, property management, for the most part, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Their own portfolio and, I suppose, the stuff they do for others. But, just there's a lot of little tips and tricks throughout the episode, or just lessons learned, maybe is a better way. Not so much tips, a little bit, but lessons learned. And I could definitely identify with a lot of what he said. And his energy reminded me a lot of Ford. If I was going to compare him to one other guest, totally different businesses, but the energy level and the passion for real estate was the same.
For sure. And it's a lesson to see what can happen. I always say I'm planting little seeds when I buy these deals. Nothing very exciting happens to my life when I buy a deal these days, but 30 years from now, it's going to turn into something for sure. And so Jake's dad planted a bunch of seeds a long time ago. Now look at him, It's pretty cool.
Right.
Okay, here's Jake.
Are gonna think I'm crazy when I kind of talk about how we manage and do things, but I'm like, that's why it's like I wanted to come on, kind of talk about it a little bit, because I'm like, we're so different, even as a management company, than other companies. Like, and I'm not bragging. There's times where I'm like, this is a lot, but I'm like, there's a good perspective that I'm like, hey, we can hopefully educate people too, and be like, hey, there's a different way to do it. Your management company doesn't just, they can help you make money. They're not in it just to make money themselves. They should be trying to help their clients make money too. And that's, the way I do it is probably a little more extreme, but I'm like, there's a way that you can do this where your clients can make like as much money. In my opinion, I try and have them make as much money as I can, and I make a little bit of money on it too, and everyone's happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Scribante was really stressing that.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that episode.
Yeah.
Like PMs get a bad rap.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. I talk SHIT about them all the time, but there's just a lot of bad ones, and they're really disappointing when they're bad.
Yeah,
because you know.
And
I think it's a really tough business. We've talked about this quite a bit, and I think it's just a tough business.
And I got a perfect example I'll go into too when we get going, and that point where I'm like, I had a guy hire me, hadn't made money in like 4 months. He was like getting bills every month, and they had it where his account was linked where they could just pull the money out. So I'm like, it was costing him money to own a threeplex, and he was just like, what is going on? They were charging like 20 hours a month of maintenance labor, for turning over a unit. He's like, for 3 months in a row, like how much work could they possibly be doing? So he hired me. I'm like, and I'll talk about how I do maintenance, which I'm sure people are gonna be like, this guy is crazy, but we'll get to. But I use maintenance as a pass through. Whatever I get billed, I pass it on to my clients. I don't upcharge maintenance because I'm like, I want my clients to make as much money as I can. So right now we do like, I've got subs that work for $30-$35 an hour. I have them go do maintenance work. Whatever they charge me, I charge the client. So I've got clients that like, they love that model because I'm like, they can make so much more money without having to pay $85 an hour or whatever on maintenance.
We're having a hard time finding people below 60, 65 right now, something like that. I don't know. And I should even ask Nicole what that number really is, because like there's a range, right? Yeah. And
the people that I deal with they're not driving brand new vehicles. They're the ones that you got to worry about. Are they actually going to go there when they say they're going to go there? But I've got a good guy in southern Minnesota that like, he goes MIA on me every few months where I don't hear from him for a week or so. But I'm like, a lot of the times, 90% of the time when I need him to go somewhere, he goes there, he does it, sends me a bill, I pay him right away, and he keeps working. So once I find those people, I try and do whatever I can to keep them happy, because I'm like, those are the kind of guys that I need, just because I'm like, my clients can make so much more money. You can't make any money when you're paying $400 to replace a faucet and things like that. So that's kind of how my perspective is on it. It doesn't work for everyone. If you are just like a one-off landlord, it's hard. Like you can't deal with those kind of people, but like I'm dealing with those people every day. So I'm like, I have the right expectation. I'm not expecting A+ work when I'm paying D rates. Like I understand we all have this role to play. So
yeah, that's a very good point. I would call it a one-off, right? We have more than one property, but we're still a one-off landlord. And what we went through years of having the same handyman, but he's retired. He's, north of 80 by a decent amount. I don't remember his exact age anymore, but he just like, this last year, he's like, I can't physically do it anymore.
Yeah, I got a guy with 3 days a week right now. He's 65 years old, but like, he doesn't do a lot of things great, but he does a lot of things good. So it's like I can have him do siding, windows. I pay him like $25 an hour, but there's times where I'm like, hey, I should have hired a $50 an hour guy because he could have done it twice as fast. So there are things that like I'm learning with him of like, it doesn't make sense to have him do it, but like small drains, snaking them, stuff like that. I can save clients a fortune by having this guy do it, because I'm like, I can go throw him in there he could work there all day and still be cheaper than if I had Roto-Rooter or one of those other companies. So there's little tricks I've learned where I'm like, I have guys that can do work that like no one really wants to do. and I can just save them a fortune. So
Yeah.
I do a lot of that.
Yeah, that works. And that actually brings up a good point is like, if you talk to handy people, usually, especially when they're newer, they're going to tell you they can do everything, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of think they can, and they can on some level, right? Like they can do a 50% job on every single project, right?
Yeah.
And they got YouTube to back them up.
Yeah.
But the fact is they're good at certain things, right? And figuring out what that is. With our previous handyman, the one who's totally retired now, what we used to say is he can do anything that doesn't have to look good when you're done. If it's painting or the caulking, we used to laugh. My wife and I were like, it looks like a preschooler caulk this.
Trust me, I feel your pain. I have dealt with more than that, and there's times where I'm like, oh, I knew better, and I still did it after all these years, and I'm like, trust me, I still make those from like, I thought it would be different this time, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
But
so if you're shopping for a handy person, my thoughts are, and by the way, we are, but my thoughts are, hire a bunch of different ones.
Yeah.
Actually, don't get stuck on one to beginning.
Yeah.
Like, try to get 5.
Yeah.
And yes, you could probably do the work, but don't do it because you need them to do work that you could fix if it's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, because you're testing them, right?
Yeah,
it's an on-the-job interview, you know, a practical interview.
Yeah.
So you can see how they act, how they bill. How
timely,
how they talk to the tenant. We have one that's pretty good. He's kind of expensive. He's good at everything except for the way he talks to tenants.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, he creates problems by the way he does. Oh, this was done wrong. Well, first of all, number one, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Number two, they don't need to know that because now all of a sudden they're wondering whatever else is done wrong and all this stuff. And just like that kind of talk. And it's like, dude.
Yeah.
You know, we just paid you to fix this, to do it right. Please don't tell them how it was done wrong because you didn't do it and we didn't do it.
For sure.
You know,
Yeah.
it was purchased this way.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I know. Yeah.
that kind of stuff, right?
I feel your pain.
Yeah. So we don't use him anymore, and actually, we know another landlord who stopped using him. Same thing because they basically echoed what we said. It's like his bedside manner. He's trying to be really nice to the tenants, but it really creates problems.
For sure. Yeah. I definitely.
I had this plumber I had to fire because he told a client they had bought a house like a week ago. He told them, you guys might as well just sell this house and move into a hotel because that's how bad the plumbing is.
Yeah.
I had an electrician tell my
Can't
wife
do
something
that.
similar.
Yeah.
The house
And these
should be
guys just
condemned.
love...
Yeah,
the contractors just love tearing down another contractor's work.
I know.
Nothing more.
You can't. I've scolded numerous people. Same thing. I'm like, you go in there, you tell them you're here to fix it. Anything you see other than that, you tell me and I'll handle it. You don't need to scare the tenants. They just want the work, whatever they need fixed.
Yeah.
And small talk is fine, but anything other than that, if you see something when you're there, call me. I will handle it. I don't need, because I get those all the time. He said this or that, or there was mold. I'm like, it's never mold, or it's surface mold that we can spray with. It's like these things that I'm like can exacerbate a problem. Let me handle it. Like I can take care of it. So it's a lot of things of like just learning the hard way, and like that's what I'll get. It's like we've grown this business from like the school of hard knocks, and I've seen literally everything. I'm sure you guys have too, of like everything you can think of. I've probably experienced, or my dad has experienced. So
all right, Jake, let's reel you in a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. How do I say your last name?
It's Worky.
Worky. That's a great name.
That is a great name.
Yeah. So I know it doesn't look like that, but it's pronounced Worky.
I'm in my notes, just the word work and then why in quotation marks.
Yeah.
All right. So you reached out to us because you've been listening to the podcast for a little bit. How'd you find out about us? Where'd you find
I was on a road trip. I have a lovely wife and 2 small kids. We were driving to Colorado I live in Jordan. We were driving on a road trip to Colorado on vacation.
Nice.
And I was on the night shift. So I was driving, and I've seen you guys' names. I'm in all the real estate groups. I've seen you guys post, and then I was listening to the podcast, and I thought, I have a little bit different perspective on real estate than a lot of people. So I love what I do. It gives me a lot of joy and fulfillment. But I also have a different perspective on like investing, how to manage things. So I thought I wanted to reach out and just kind of talk about how I see the real estate world. So, I was driving with my wife. I've had 2 small kids. I've been in real estate my whole life. My family has owned a plethora of different properties over the last 30 years. My dad was a real estate investor. First was a landscaper, then a real estate investor. Started with a little different progression than most. Owned a couple single family homes, and then got into a partnership and went and bought 80 units in Rochester in the mid 2000s, early 2000s. And you can imagine that went as well as you would think. A first time investor buying 80 units in a different city. He was just like, yeah, my dad was one of the hardest working guys that I know, and he tried his best. He was, when I was a kid, when he was owning those, I was like 8 years old, and if I wanted to spend a lot of time with my dad during the week in the summer, I was with him. So he had a set hotel room in Rochester. We spent about 3 days a week living in Rochester, him and I. So we were down there. I was on site. He, was working it as hard as he could. But after years, you can imagine the toll that takes on someone. We lived in Jordan. We were commuting to Rochester pretty much daily. So he had a manager on site. These were value add. He was remodeling. We were hauling material. We were doing everything. My dad was the partner that was doing the management of the property. But after a few years, he was just like, I can't do this. This is too much. So he got out of that. Then he went, and at the same time, I actually owned 40 units in Albert Lea. So we would make a loop. We would go from Jordan to Rochester to Albert Lea in a day. So him and I would just hit the road every day, every couple days a week. Wow. And we're driving around to these properties.
And I'm sorry, what age are you at this point,
so
approximately?
I'm 8 years old.
8? Wow,
so I'm
cool.
8 or 9 years old, just driving with my dad. And he always said, our plan was to try and grow this into a business that's a legacy, sustainable business that his kids work in it. But at that point, he restarted then. He sold the 80 units. He sold the 40 units. He's just like, I can't manage stuff efficiently from 2 hours away from my house. So how am I going to do this that I can build a business into something that is sustainable for my family? Being on the road at that point, he had 3 kids with a 4th on the way. He was just like, I cannot do this. So I need to try and find a more efficient way. So he got out of that. He kind of regrouped then. Obviously, this is the time where the market turned, 2007, 2008. He got out of the stuff that he was in, was kind of regrouping then at that point. It was, okay, what am I going to do next?
What do you mean by got out of the stuff?
He sold the 80 units to his partner. So he got out of that. And then he sold the 80 or the 40 units in Albert Lea. So then he owned a couple single family homes in Jordan. Then at that point, my mom was doing all the book work, but my dad handled all the day to day. So he was doing the showings, rent collections, all of that. And at that point, he was trying to figure, okay, what am I going to do next? I want to do real estate. He was a landscaper for 25 years. He was like, I'm not laying block in any more sod. So he's like, okay, I'm going to start going full time into real estate investing. And that's what he did. Obviously, the market turned, and at that point, he was pretty well positioned. So he started buying.
He sold to his partnerships before the correction.
Got out. He and then was like, okay, I'm going to get in and start going into real estate full time. The market turned, and he was like, this is the time. This is when I'm going to put it all on the line.
Oh, so
it's amazing
he
timing.
pulled out early.
And then was like, now I'm ready to go. He had, nothing else on his plate at that point. He had dabbled in the assisted living field as well. Same thing. My dad is a wealth of knowledge, because I'm like, he's done all these things, and everything he did that he said never worked as well as he wanted was far away. He was in an assisted living in Long Lake, which is an hour and some change away from our house. So then his thesis changed. He was like, I need to buy stuff close to where I live. He's like, I need to be buying stuff where I live. He's like, I don't want to be on the road. He had 4 kids at that point. He's like, I do not want to be on the road missing my kids' lives. But he's like, I need to provide as well. So then what he started doing is anything he could get his hands on within 15 minutes of where we lived, he bought. So between 2009 and 2017, he went from 10 units to about 45 units.
Yeah, and they must have been cheap as hell too, because
30,000.
They were cheap in Northeast Minneapolis back then. Yeah. So in Jordan, they must have been
between
cheap.
30,000 and 75,000. He was buying the houses that needed the most work in a nice area. Jordan is an amazing town to live. It's about 10 minutes away from Shakopee. But at that time, the stars all aligned. Things
Yeah.
were cheap. He had a little bit of capital. He had access to money as well.
And he knew what to do.
Yeah, he had been a construction guy in his early youth, so he's like, he knew construction. He knew a little bit about real estate. He had seen what had happened with owning large multifamily. He's like, okay, if I can do it on that scale, I can do single family home management. So changed his mind, started buying as many single family homes as he could get his hands on, and then sprinkled in a little bit of small multifamily. So was doing single family homes. We owned a couple duplexes, a fourplex, and a couple threeplexes. So by the time I came on board in 2019, I had been involved. But, I went to high school, I went to college. My dad kind of took care of all the day-to-day on his own. I mowed the grass when I could. We helped with snow removal.
Did you like it back then as a kid?
And,
You did? Okay.
and him and I had always had this plan of like, we are going to grow this where you're going to kind of run it, and then my siblings can come in and work on it if they want. And he's like, let's try and do this. Let's try and turn this into a real business. So he's like, hey, it's not going to be easy. He's like, I'm growing it to where I think is sustainable for us. But he's like, if you want to come on board, you got to take it to the next level. He's like, I've got the foundation. He's like, he's been a landlord for like 30 years. He's like, I'm tired. I am tired of being a landlord. So he's like, I've got us the good base. I will hand you the keys and you go and do with it what you want, to like, let's turn this into a real business. And so then that's what I did. I went to school at MSU in Mankato and got a degree in accounting. So I'm like, my parents learned how to like do bookwork on their own. They didn't know how to do income statements and balance sheets, and they just learned as they were going. So I learned like the finances of how to like run a business, the finance side. I hate accounting. I'm not a sit at a desk guy. I'm not filing taxes. I hated all of that. I mainly did it for like the bookkeeping aspect of like reconciling bank accounts, stuff like that. So that was always my plan. Get a degree in accounting, figure out how to like be able to run the business efficiently. And then I graduated in 2017, and I went and worked for Sherman Associates in the
Chris
cities
Sherman's
here.
company?
Yeah. Yep.
So they're like your family, except her.
On a different level.
Except it was a grandfather, and they started a lot earlier.
Correct. So then
do you know him?
So I don't keep in touch with them. I got to meet him though. He's an amazing guy. The Shermans are awesome. Like they see real estate on a different level, but the same way. They are, revitalizing communities. And I learned a lot about like they just did stuff the right way, and it made me enjoy. I didn't always enjoy working like the work I was doing because it's hard, but I'm like, I knew at the end of the day they were trying to always do the right thing. So I went and worked for them, and I was their first, like they called it a manager in training. So they set up this program. They were trying to create a program to like train and retain property managers. Okay. So I was their first one. So I graduated, I went to work for them. And I want to give a shout out to my boss, Melissa. She taught me how to manage property. She was a killer. She was 4'11", middle-aged woman, but she could keep her own with anyone. And
so can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Just so people know who this is.
Yeah.
This is the company that owns the colorful building that you drive by that a lot of people call the ghetto in the sky, Riverside Plaza.
Yep.
Their grandfather bought that building in roughly 1980.
Yep.
Roughly. Chris's grandfather. And I saw Chris speak. Yeah. So that's the people. And they do so much more than that now. If you see now, if you drive down in Minneapolis, you might see where the construction comes out in the street, and there's big signs all along the fencing. Yeah. That would be a company like them, and they're in multiple states now, right?
Their old headquarters,
Iowa, Minnesota,
used to be the spaghetti factory downtown.
Yeah.
So and they've now since redeveloped all that. So I learned how to manage properties from them. So I went. I shadowed a boss. I went and worked. I was telling you guys, managed a building down by CHS Field. I did a lot of low income housing, which I really appreciate that I did because the clientele is a little bit different than what I was dealing with now. But it really taught me how to manage buildings.
Do you remember a few of the takeaways from that time period?
It was hard, but it really taught me that like you have to be firm, nice but firm. People used to say like I was a nice asshole. They just thought like you have to be able to get people to do things you want or need, but in a nice way where they respect you, but they don't walk all over you. So I've seen people get walked over like crazy because I'm like, once you give that, weakness probably isn't the right word, but once you let something slide one time, the floodgates open and that building can turn quick. So
it's just like raising a kid, right?
Yep.
You know, you let them stay up too late or whatever.
Yeah.
And you let the temper tantrum work, and then right.
And we would, and like my boss would always tell me like, do not get caught doing something that you wouldn't let any other tenant in the building do, because once it happens, it's going to spread like wildfire. Once you say you waive a late fee or you do something, you lower somebody's rent less than what the market was be or something like that. She's like, once you do something like that, the floodgates are opened and you either have to come back 10 times harder to get things back in line, or she's like, if you just stay on the even keel, everything is by the book, you never have to worry about things like that. So that's kind of what we did is I managed different properties for them, and then they placed me at the building. If you've been to the state fairgrounds, it's on the corner of Larpenter and Snelling there. There's a Pizza Hut right there. I managed that 119 units. It was in Falcon Heights. Right there, the state fairground parking lot is about a half mile down the road. I managed that building for like 2.5 or 3 years.
What's going on with your folks' business this whole time that you're in college and you're with this other company? So
they're kind of just staying pat. They're buying good deals that come across their plate, but they're mainly just maintaining. You know, they're doing, my dad, between 2015 and 2017, he was on a first name basis with the people at like Menards and Home Depot because he was buying material like every day. So I'm like, and they probably hated him, but he would go at night because they would help him load the trailers when he was buying loads and loads of material. So he'd show up at like 9 o'clock. By 9:45, they closed at 10. So everyone wanted to leave. They'd be loading up the trucks and stuff like that. So they were maintaining. So they would buy stuff that was like home run deals in our eyes. But they're, you know, we're not really retail buyers. We were buying stuff that would come across our plate, or things that we could see like, you know, these make sense for us to buy. So
like, what's a home run deal in those years, do you think?
So we're a cash buyer. So a lot of our stuff we were buying in cash. So like a sample deal is something that, you know, in that between 50 and 100,000, we would probably put on the, you know, a deal on a $50,000 buy needs $50,000 to $75,000 worth of work. You know, you're all in at like 125,000 fixed up. You know, we were looking at ARVs at that time are probably 200 to 250. They would rent for anywhere from, you know, $1,200 to $1,500 a month. Obviously, that's a lot of cash to like be putting into a deal. But at that point, our goal at that time was try and make $1,000 a month on our money net. So that was after property taxes, insurance, and any utilities we paid. We were trying to make $1,000 net.
But there's no debt service.
No debt service. So everything was cash. So
across the whole portfolio, or just the new purchases?
Yeah, new purchases.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I should preface, we use debt. So we use debt on a lot of multifamily stuff. We are very fortunate how we structure deals and how we were buying them. We are not a 75% LTV company, though. If you looked at our balance sheet, you would be like, how did you guys do it? A lot of it was luck. Like, I'll be honest.
Well, timing, right? You said you bought a lot of stuff in, like, you know, it sounded like 2008 through 2010 time frame. And if people don't know, it was so cheap that like, I mean, Todd Dexheimer, he was also, I mean, I don't want to say lucky because these people saw the opportunity.
Exactly.
But that same opportunity, you know, if it existed today, well, frankly, no one would let it happen again, right? Because you would be buying up properties and I would be buying up properties.
And my dad's wise words were always like, people thought that I was crazy. He was telling people what he was doing and like, what are you doing? Real estate values are down 50% and you're all buying everything you can get your hands on. He's just like, he never thought that houses would stay that low. So he's like, so for example, he bought a fourplex in 2011 or 2012 for $160,000. It was boarded up. It was closed. No units rented, no nothing. Now we think that building is worth $650,000, $700,000. So, but it took a lot of risk. There was no units in there. He was funding it. He had debt service at that time. That building has a mortgage now. It's like the mortgage, I think principal balance is like $160,000. We've just been constantly rolling it over on a 5-year renewal. But like, we do use debt. If you looked at our debt though, you'd be like, how did they do this? Like they have a portfolio of a lot of single family homes that are paid for. And then we usually have a little bit of debt on our multifamily stuff.
Got it. That's cool. So
I kind of interrupted your story.
Yeah. I want to talk about your family's portfolio, but I feel like some of these lessons you learned could be valuable. So can we kind of go back to like your time at Sherman and like what are some other things you learned either right before going to Falcon Heights or during Falcon Heights?
So in Falcon Heights, I worked there for like I said, 3 years, and I'm not to like pat myself on the back. I had a team of people that were there with me, but they specifically placed me there because that building was underperforming. And they were like, hey, we think that you can be the guy that can get it back on track. Rents were lower than what they wanted. They were having a ton of turnover. They had a lot of vacancy, which was surprising for that area. They're like, we shouldn't have any vacancy. Like, it's in an area that people want to live at.
People probably know this if you're from the Twin Cities, but the Falcon Heights is the primo part of Roseville, right? It's like Roseville plus 20%.
The mall is like right down the street from there. It's like a half mile down the road. So they were like, hey, give it your best shot. You know, we need somebody that cares about these properties. And they were just like, let's see what you can do. So I went there and we hit the ground running like right away. I had an assistant manager and I had 2 maintenance guys. The big thing was like just getting everyone on the same page of like, hey, we are all in this together. It's not me. It was all of us collectively. So we went to work. We started like raising rents. You know, they were renting, and I know this one always sticks in my head. They had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit that somebody had lived in since 2006, and the rent was like $995.
And what year was this?
This was in like 2018.
Yeah, we were getting like
the market rent, the Section 8 voucher rent was like $1,600.
Yeah.
So these are the things I'm like, it's just the nature of how the business works. So what I did on a lot of these is we pushed the Section 8 voucher to the max. That's what I did. Is I came in and said like, hey, I'm sorry, we can't keep the rent this low. The Section 8 program has a voucher limit for a reason.
Yeah.
That's what the market rent is. That's what the rent should be. So
what does that process look like? I'm about to sign my first Section 8 tenant. If I want to raise rent a year later, can you just systematically 3% a year? Or like what is the back and forth?
You have to ask for permission and you have to do it far enough in advance.
Correct. So we were doing, and this was tax credit housing. So we had a 4-year process. So my assistant manager, him and I worked out a deal where he was very meticulous. So he did all the paperwork. We had to send all the paperwork to Sherman's corporate office. So he did all of the tax credit paperwork and I dealt with all the money. So it was nice. So we were a yin and a yang where I'm like, let me deal with the rent and the leasing and you deal with all the tax credit paperwork. And that's what we would do. So we would start the tax credit renewal 120 days in advance of the renewal. Not all these people were on Section 8 vouchers though. So those ones, we would send the renewal to Section 8 saying, hey, we're renewing this person, but here is the rent amount that it's going to be at once their lease renews. And then Section 8 would work on what their portion was and what the tenant portion was based on their income. So, but then that was an easy thing for me to do because I'm like, there was rents that were way lower than what they should be. So then I worked there and we put in a lot. And my big thing is like, it's my biggest pet peeve to this day. I hate seeing trash around a property. So like what I would do is I would walk the building like 5 times a day. I would just get out from behind my desk, lock my office door and just walk. So, and I did that strategically because tenants want to see their manager giving a crap. They want to see the people there that you're not just paying rent to some conglomerate that doesn't care, that was just punching their clock every day and going home and shutting the office. Or like, I was out on the property every couple hours.
They saw you, they got to know you. They also knew they couldn't get away with certain things, right? They weren't
smoking in the building. We cut there was little things of like somebody would always prop the door open with a penny, so they were letting unauthorized guests into the building, stuff like that. And I used to tell people like, this is a safety issue. My job is to keep this building and all the tenants in here safe. So little things like that. Where
it ruins a hinge too.
And I used to tell people like, my job is number one to make sure that this building is a spot that people want to live at. And obviously there's a financial incentive for my company that I was working at to like make money too. So we did a lot of change like that. When I left,
did you notice that like people who wanted to break the rules left quickly, or how did that all work out? Or were the rents so low they stayed anyway?
They stayed, but a lot of it was like we just kind of nipped it in the bud of like, this is gonna stop. Whether if you don't get in line or get your guest in line, and that was a big thing, is it was 99% of the time, it wasn't the resident. It was who they were hanging out with that would cause problem at the building.
Yeah,
and I had a lot of squabble with those people where I'm like, this isn't going to work. I'm not working as hard here to make this building a nice spot to live just for you to bring a guest over to drop trash on the ground and do stuff like that.
A podcast tip, that you need to have a clause in your lease that holds your tenants responsible for their guest action and inaction, right?
Yeah.
Because like sometimes it's inaction.
Yeah.
Like for example, I'm thinking more. The thing that came to mind was a tenant thing, but like not putting the garbage back to the right spot in Minneapolis can be a fine.
Yeah,
that's an inaction, right? But most of the things are actions, but they can go both ways. So you don't use the word action; you say an action or inaction, and you hold them responsible to it, and you make it a material. It could be a material breach of the lease.
Yeah.
That type of wording allows you to enforce it in court.
And that's why when people saw me out and about, they realized like I genuinely care about this building. All my team that we worked with, my boss, we all genuinely cared about them, where they lived, and how the building looked. So like,
and they could see that, right?
They saw it through action, where it wasn't word. It was I was out in the parking lot picking up trash every day just because I'm like, I genuinely cared.
Yep.
So I did that for like 2.5 and 3 years, and then it got to a point where I'm like, all right. My dad was kind of ready for his next step. He's like, do you want to try this? Like, we always talked about it. I was 25 at the time. He's like, it's now or never. He's like, I'm either going to look at selling out and just doing my next thing. My dad at that point was in his 50s. He'd been a landlord for 30 years. He's like, I'm going to look at either doing something else and leaving whatever I get to my kids, or let's try this. So I left Sherman Associates. I was reluctant. Like, I loved working for them. I thought I could have stayed with them for a long time. I could have grown with them. They've exploded since I left too. So it, I took a risk.
And this was 19, is that right? 2019?
Yeah, 2019. Okay. So
just to make sure I remember correctly.
So I left Sherman Associates in November of 2019. Obviously, the timeline we're getting on is the world changed in March of 2020. But I left, and then my dad and I, we were trying to figure out, like, at that point, we owned about 45 units. So we owned about 45 units, and we're just managing about 10 units for, like, family and friends, people we knew. So, and for everyone that thinks of, like, oh, he had this all figured out, trust me, I remember sitting at my parents' house that first day I started, and I was waiting for my dad to have a laundry list of things we were going to do that day. And he was just like, all right, here's where I'm at. This is what I think we should do, but it's your time now. And I remember sitting there like, oh my gosh, did I make a mistake? Like, do I know what I'm doing? Like, I'm 25 years old. I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So I give my parents a lot of credit. They have a lot of trust in me of like, hey, they know that I will work tirelessly to like make sure that this goes to whether they're taken care of is my main priority. I don't want them to grow this business and all of a sudden they give it to me and it becomes less valuable, or I run it into the ground. So I always said, like, your needs will always come before mine, because I'm like, they didn't work this hard to watch their son squabble away their little bit of wealth that they created.
So he gives you it sounds like he gives you quite a bit of reins.
Yeah.
Talk to us about like some of the things you saw early on. So 2019, you come in, you have experience with hundreds of units at a time, with big organization. You see Dad, who scrapped it, which, is needed to get to that point. What sort of things do you identify, and what do you do to correct them?
Everything went online. My dad, like I said, he learned through trial and error. So like he had a lease template, but he would write it in pen. So like when it took him like 2 hours to write a lease out, when he was filling in tenant's name, and all that. And like I said, it's not his fault. there wasn't computers in the mid 2000s when you were typing out leases. He was writing everything out. So, so he did what worked for him. When I came in, I'm like, everything's got to be online. Everything. So like we adapted a management software. We used Tenant Cloud.
Okay.
And obviously this happened all very quickly. I thought it would take a year to get a company that I was, comfortable with. By March, so I'd only been working for him for like 4 months. By March, I was like, holy crap, like the world had shut down, like March 18th. So I was like, we didn't have anything really set up by that point. So I had gotten a lease online. I had gotten a digital copy, but I'm like, we had just started with a portal. So I'm like, we had just had a tenant portal set up in March because we had gotten a little bit of wind the world was changing a little bit. We didn't know what was coming. So I'm like, we had got all my tenants online. And then all of a sudden, like things shut down and we were like, holy crap, what are we going to do? So we had everything online.
Which is better because you got digital payments then as opposed
so we
to
took
having to go around.
Payments. We were taking like Venmo at the time.
Prior to that, did you collect rent in person a lot?
We had a Dropbox. So we were getting like 20 checks, 25 checks a month mailed to our P.O. box.
Yeah. Folks, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Everybody has the ability to pay digitally.
Yeah.
And if they don't, it's a problem. It's like the lowest level of background check you can do is if a tenant can't get a checking account, they truly don't qualify at Huntington Bank.
Yeah.
They don't deserve to be your tenant.
Yeah. So then we started doing everything online payments, work orders online. And so then that really streamlined it. That was like, hey, all the work that we were doing up until that point became way less because I'm like, I could send somebody a lease in 5 minutes. I'm like, I could have it signed in 2 hours. So that was like, I'm like, wait, we have something here now. We know what to put in a lease. My dad had been managing properties for 20 years. Yeah. I had just came from Sherman. I'm like, I know what's an effective way to manage stuff. So then I was like, okay.
Any specific lease changes you brought from Sherman that you can bring to people?
It was just more organized, honestly.
Oh, okay. It wasn't just the clauses you're talking about?
Template. Like they had like all of these clauses that I'm like, we had in our lease, but it was just way cleaner. It was lawyered up language. I'm like, ours was just like, make sure you don't burn trash because we had tenants burning trash. So I'm like, and my dad was a genius because he was adding all of these clauses as he experienced it. Boom, it went in his lease.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
so he ended up with the same lease. It was just written by your dad.
Exactly. So I'm like, he was just like, we had a lease by Sherman, a template. Right. And then it was lawyered up to the gills, and we added in clauses that we had of like people burning trash and tires and things like that. Where I'm like, I mean, my lease right now is the lease itself is 10 pages, but all of the addendums and all of these things are 25 pages.
Yeah, addendum. I did the same thing as your dad.
Yeah.
I created our lease over time, and then I've had an attorney reviewed every so often.
Yeah.
And so similar.
Yeah.
There was something else you just said that I was going to mention. So you got the lease. Don't burn the trash.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not
all
sure
these different clauses. Yeah. So like you read our lease and you will think it's so like basic, but I'm like, all of that is in there for a reason. We have had people that have done these things throughout the years, and now it's like, hey, that's something that needs to go in your lease. So
I think focusing on also the move-in portion, the portion between, people forget the portion between signing the lease and then moving in, and you need to have some stuff in there. And so like, what would that look like? One of them would be like making sure that utilities get put in their name, right?
Yeah.
Because if they don't, the after effect of getting them put in their name is a lot of management work.
Yeah.
We charge a fee.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I brought up before. I've learned two things. You can either evict or charge a fee.
Yep.
If you don't have a fee associated with a problem, your only other option is evicting.
For sure.
Are you going to evict them because they didn't put the utilities in your name? You can't. This goes to your point. You can't feel bad about finding them because it's your only option other than eviction.
For sure. And here's one thing I'll stress to people that are listening. Make sure, and I cannot stress this enough, make sure the move-in funds are certified. Do not take a personal check. And I learned that from a guy I bought a building from because 2020, it was February of 2020, he took a personal check from the tenant. The check bounced. March happens. Court shut down. He was stuck with this tenant for a year, wanted off of it, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but we bought the building. So always make sure the funds are certified.
The Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show is brought to you by Shook Rentals. That's SHUK Rentals. You can go to shookrentals.com and learn all about this awesome locally owned company. It's rental management software, so it's got all of the normal stuff that you see with rent collection, great communication pathways for tenants, keeping everything organized financially. You uploaded your leases, all that kind of stuff. But also, they have this, I don't think anyone else does this. They ask tenants monthly or bi-monthly to rate their likelihood of extending their lease. And so you don't get, 60 days notice, okay, now we got to find a new tenant. As long as the tenants are cooperating, you'll have a pretty good idea 6 months before the lease ends whether you have to find a new tenant or not. And I think that is super cool. So thanks so much to Oliver and the gang over at Shook Rentals for sponsoring the pod. We love you guys. You're the best.
Verifying the funds are good is what we have to do. So what we do is we make them send us their bank statement. We can see if they don't have the funds. If they have them in the thing, we know okay, they've got $2,000 there. It's going to be good when they send it to us, right? But if we're not sure, let's say they got no money, because with our Section 8 tenants, a lot of times they have no money and they have to come up with their stuff. Then before they send us the digital payment, it either has to be in our account or if it's in process, we have to see. We're like, send us the pending transaction, the screenshot of the pending transaction, because then we can see the money leaving their account is gonna be good, right? So anyway, that's how we solve it. It's a little different, and I agree with you. I'm just saying, if you're accepting digital payments, you can't have certified
Jake,
funds.
I love how much restraint you're.
I know. I like to acknowledge. Yeah, sorry, probably looks weird.
Dude, your energy is great. It's just a technical thing that makes my life easier.
There was another thing you said too. Move in. So we were talking about move in. So like utilities have to be in their name. Don't give. I think you said this without saying it, but don't give them the keys unless you have the funds.
Yes.
Right. They don't. It's not an IOU when they move in, because if it's IOU when they move in, it goes to your other point of it's an IOU forever.
Yeah.
Right. So no keys without moving in. We had that recently where this actually is our most recent Section 8 tenant moving in. She kept delaying him. Nicole and I were like, oh, this is a really big red flag. This is super easy to set up, blah, blah, blah. So she got to the point she wanted to move in, and she's like, when can I meet to get the keys? And I kept telling Nicole, I'm like, be a broken record on this. No keys until you send the money. And she kept asking. I said, only say the same thing every time. No keys until you send the money. No keys until you send the money. No keys until you send the money. Eventually she sends it, but it's so late that it could have been, to your point, we're like, these funds might not be good. So we're like, you need to prove that these funds are good,
And my only pushback to the digital is make sure like you said, they initiate the payment ahead of time. So if people are going to pay digital on my platform, I make them pay it 7 days in advance, because it takes that amount of time to clear my bank. So otherwise, it either has to be cash, cashier's check, money order, or Venmo for the move-in funds, or they can pay on the platform. So that's just a word of advice with people is do not let them initiate the payment the day before unless you have assurances that it's going to clear the bank.
If you're using Shook.
Or you use Shook. Shout out to
Sponsor.
Shook, because you'll get that money right away.
Yeah.
You can get it same day or next day with Shook, just so everyone
Sometimes
knows.
I get it before they pay. It's crazy.
So just so everyone knows, the funds still have to be good, but you'll get that money. If it's good funds, you'll get it
I have a question.
No extra fee.
When you sat down with your dad, okay, here's what I'm thinking. What were you talking about, like growth wise, and what I would ask your dad if he were here right now, because I'm really curious about this. I'd like to be building something for my kids. I see people like Will Rolfe. Maybe you're like this too, Tim, with your investments. Like there comes to a point where it's kind of the snowball, this like self-sustaining thing, because you have income and you have equity. And I want to have that, and I think I'm just too early, right? I still have to just keep putting the money that I'm making in my job into more deals. And I think a lot of that is strategic. Like, when do you refi? When do you keep a property making you money? And so that's what I would ask your dad. But what's your take?
So we have the same thesis, and this business only works because him and I look at real estate the same way. Him and I have a different risk tolerance, though. I'm 31 years old. He's 61 years old. He's like, Jake, I love you. I will do any deal that you bring to me that makes sense, no matter what the dollar amount is, no matter what the money I need to come up with, whatever I need to borrow. But he's like, you sometimes have to look at deals from my perspective of like, I can't lose all of this because you want to do a more risky deal than we normally do, because he's like, I don't have time to recover. I'm 60 years old. I've put my life's work into this business. He's got, you know, an investment account, but like all of his wealth is tied up in his rentals. So we use that when I'm analyzing a deal. It's whether I have the funds for a substantial down payment if I'm going to borrow the rest. And that's how, but like single family homes, like, for example, we bought a single family home in Chaska, Minnesota, which is where we own some other property. It was like $150,000. We exchanged into it. I sold some land, which if you talk to my dad, he's going to say it was like the piece of land he loved more than any other piece he's ever owned.
Really?
And so I talked him into it. He always thought it was going to be developed into like the next phase of Jordan as it grew, and it didn't. So he paid like $30,000 for it in the 90s. I ended up selling it. I talked him into selling it. We sold it for like $290,000, and then I went and exchanged it into two properties that are probably worth $600,000 today, that net like $3,500 a month. So I'm like, those are the kind of deals that we're doing. I'm like, I'm selling something that wasn't making us money and turning it into cash flow. So what I recommend to people is, number one, whether you're doing it with family or as you're trying to grow a business, make sure whether it's your kids or your spouse, you have a realistic timeline of like, and you're on the same page, because him and I had to align on where we thought this business was going, because he's like, I don't want to own 1,000 units. He's like, I don't
You don't need to have a lot of money.
He's like,
you really
I don't need to. And exactly, you're right. He's like, and I should preface, I hope I don't sound like I'm bragging. Like, we're not driving around in Rolls Royces. We are hardworking, regular people. We live in regular houses. My parents have amassed a little bit of wealth, but it's, you know, we have the same struggles as everyone. So we've just been fortunate through like hard work and good decisions and deals that like, yes, our rentals now generate quite a bit of cash each month. And then whether we buy something or not, the wheel is always moving. So I'm like, we're using the cash flow. We live off the cash flow though. So, and I'll get into my management business a little bit, but the cash flow is what makes the wheel move. So I'm like, we now have these deals. I shouldn't say they print cash, but like, we're generating quite a bit of cash flow. If we didn't buy a deal in a year, we have generated enough cash to be able to buy a deal for the next year. So now we've got this structured where it's like, it's moving. It's, you know, once you get the ball rolling, that thing rolls downhill fast.
I lived that life for a little while. Yeah. And then in 2019, I made some changes that doesn't do that. But I remember summer right around 2017, I started noticing that our bank account just wouldn't stop growing no matter what I did. Like literally I could just hire whoever I wanted. Like something needs to get fixed, do it. We need a new air conditioner or fixed or replaced. Oh, we'll replace it. You know, like things were just rolling. So I do know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
And that's after how many years, Tim, of buying real estate?
Well, so I think I'm a bad example. I mean, the truth is it was way too long. I think I made a lot of mistakes by being not aggressive enough. Okay. But the answer to your question is from 2003 to that started happening. Actually, I started noticing it in 2016, so 13 years. Mm-hmm. But in those 13 years, that was 7 units. So it was nothing, right? And then from 2017 to 2019, that we added 9 units that year. So what we're up to 16. And then by 2019, we had 22 units, right? Something like that. I mean, that sounds about right. 2018, 2019, we had 22 units. So I was about where I was half of where your dad was at, but the cash flow was amazing. Anyway, I got out of a lot of those properties in apartments, you know, so, you know, people can see a trend maybe. Apartments aren't bad, but they are not, they're glorified. Let's just put it that way. They're just as hard. They have different challenges. Now I think I know what the challenges are. I would get back into apartments. But again, I actually would only do it local too, because I think long distance management is extremely difficult on big apartment buildings unless you own a lot of units. Like if you have 1,000 units, not that hard. If you have like 200, which sounds like a lot, it's extremely difficult because of what those buildings require. 200 units doesn't really get you a big enough fish to go with a third party, but it's very, very small for you to run it on your own and do it well out of state.
And that's why,
right?
like right now, and I'll preface now. So like my dad grew it to 45 units. I came on board in 2019, and then collectively over the last 5 years, we've added like 15 units. So, and they're all strategic. So like,
they're good
And
properties,
I can,
right?
and I can give a deal of like one I did. So I sold the single family home on the outskirts of Jordan. I used the funds for that to buy a 5-unit. So I paid, it was in Belle Plaine where we own some other property. I paid like $432,000 for it, but like, it was 5 units. One of the units was like the grossest I've ever been in. I'm like, we literally, to get the carpet up, had to scrape it off the ground.
Sure.
And then one of the units was the one I talked about where the tenant had moved in, bounced the check, and was stuck there for essentially had been there for 17 months without paying. They had gotten rent help. So like the owner had been made whole, but then the prepaid rent was running out in January. So I'm like, we bought it in October of 2021, but the rent that they had prepaid from the government assistance was running out in January of 2022. So I bought this knowing there's going to be a problem coming. There is a problem coming. But, we think units are a fair market for that building was probably like $100,000 a unit. And we paid about $80,000, about 80 and change, $87,000 a unit about. So, but we got to work, got the 2 units that were rough out. And now, that building, I put a mortgage on it. So I shouldn't we still use debt to our benefit. So I put down like $130,000, but at that point, I financed it on a 5-year renewal. My interest rate was 3.75.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that thing was printing money. Like with a $1,600 a month mortgage, that thing was netting after everything like $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
So like when I look at my investment on a return basis, what is that? That's like $30,000 a year in net cash flow on a $125,000 down payment. I made a ton of money on my cash on cash. And one thing I want to preface to people is like, you guys are going to think I'm insane when I talk about this, but when I analyze a deal, we analyze it based on the actual cash that it costs to own that deal in the month. So like the mortgage payment, when I analyze it, I put in a calculation. It's the full mortgage payment.
Yeah. And
I do that because go to your bank, go to your grocery store and try and say like, hey, sir, I want to pay my groceries with principal reduction. They're going to be like, you can't pay. It is an investment arm, a way to analyze a return. But like when I analyze a deal, it's what are the rents? What is the full mortgage payment? What are the property taxes? What is the insurance? And what are the utilities that I pay? And that's the net number. Principal reduction is just an added thing. Appreciation is just another added benefit of owning it. But like when I'm analyzing a deal to buy
you're looking only at cash flow. Is that what you're saying? You're not looking at anything else?
Cash flow is king for us. Yeah. All the other things that come with owning real estate is just an added benefit. Principal reduction, added benefit. Appreciation, added benefit. But when I'm analyzing a deal, we analyze it. I do a separate.
Believe it or not, I think almost everyone analyzes it the way you do. I think you're the norm. I think the opposite is people who look at the other stuff.
People that use principal reduction, and I see it on videos all on Facebook and Instagram. Everyone's like, I'm not buying apartments for cash flow. It's for principal reduction, debt reduction, and tax benefits. I'm like, go try and buy anything with any of these other things you're talking about. It's cash flow is king. So any deal I'm analyzing is based on the cash flow, and it's that full mortgage payment. So when I'm analyzing deals, now I'm actually in the process of refinancing that deal. I'm going to make a lot less money. My rate is, I just got quoted like 6.7 or 6.5. So my payment's going to jump. Luckily, we have enough spread in there that we can just absorb it. The building's going to make a little less money for a while until rates come down.
Are you getting 25-year or do you get 30 on that?
I get 25-year AM'd, but with 5-year fixed. I've got a lender that will go 30-year. They usually want, if I'm buying it, they'll make me put down a little bit more money, but I've got a lender that will do 20% down on a 25 year instead of 25% down.
How does an underwriter analyze risk between 25 and 30 year AM? Because it doesn't seem like it'd be that big of a deal to me, but
it's usually
you know
up
what
to
I mean?
It's usually up to bank policy is what it comes down to. And so we have one lender that will do 30. Almost everyone's 25, by the way, for the record. It's kind of rare to have 30 in commercial, right? I'm not talking residential, right? And so I don't know how to answer your question otherwise. It's usually bank policy, and they just think they're right.
Find a local community bank too. That's probably another one. Like, shout out my banker John. He's amazing. I work with a small bank. They've got like 6 or 7 branches. When we provide financials, and the one thing too is I recommend to people that are looking to like get into real estate or take that next step is like, don't bring your bank every deal. Bring them deals that you know that you're like actively trying to do. Like, my bank now knows if I'm bringing them a deal, I'm like all in on it. We're not wasting time. I'm not just having them waste time underwriting. I'm like, if I'm bringing it to them, they know that he's serious about buying it. And I think people, I tell people, underwrite as many deals as you want, but also make sure that you're not wasting people's time to going through the legwork.
It depends on the type of transaction. So here's, to your point, if you're talking a small 1 to 4 unit property, you can have the bank underwrite the deal before you have it under contract. But if it's 5 units and up, that paperwork for them is so intense that you will get an enemy if you make them underwrite it before you own it. You've done enough deals with your banker that they probably give you some slack. But for most people, you get it under LOI, which means letter of intent. It's kind of like a non-binding thing. You at least know the terms, and if the financials work out with the bank, you're going to buy it, right? That's kind of how that goes. And that's the point you need to get to on these, let's say, bigger buildings.
Yeah, my point is just, it doesn't seem like it would be any noticeable difference in risk. It just makes the deal a little bit harder to pass underwriting, going from 30 to 25.
No, you're right.
So,
It's like it's probably a couple $100 a month, both in lost cash flow, but also increased equity, which is like, let's say it's $200 a month on the deal, because we're talking about small deals for the most part, right? They're getting $2,500 extra a year. Does that change their foreclosure?
No,
it
of course
doesn't.
not.
But it does actually change your monthly,
Yeah.
because that 200 on your spread might be, and your deals on a good deal for you, that's 20%, right? On a deal for a lot of people, that's 100% of their profit,
With
right?
a $400,000 loan balance at 6% interest, the 25 versus 30-year difference is $180 a month.
Yeah, so there you go. See, I was pretty close.
Yeah.
I think the interest rate would be higher, so I think I was on the nuts for those deals. Yeah. Anyway, interesting stuff. So we kind of talked through all the Sherman stuff, and we're on to your growth. So you've bought 15 since you've come on board.
You've bought 15 deals.
15 units, yeah. So we've
15 units.
grown
Can we pull a few up,
Yeah.
like some buildings?
Yeah, so look at a deal that I did in 2023. You can put, it's 107 West 2nd Street in Chaska. And a little bit about that deal. So I had some funds left over from a deal that I sold. I got to remember if I exchanged into that one or not. But a building that it's actually, so if you turn that one around, it's actually the other side. Yeah, so it's that building right there. So there's a funny story with this
Threadtastic?
building.
This is Threadtastic?
Yeah. So, and I'll get into it quickly. Yeah.
Watch my cursor. Is it this
Yes,
whole
that
building?
whole thing. Yep.
Okay.
So I got it brought to me by my broker. Was like, hey, I got this building for sale. If you're looking to buy, I actually own.
That's a cute area too.
Yeah. So
I own a property over by there too.
Nice.
Actually,
so I own 8 units on 1st Street West in Chaska. So just like 4 blocks away. So I'm like, if I can get my hands on anything in Chaska, I'll buy it. So $401,000 I paid. I put down 25%, and this one was a little different. So I financed this one with private money because I needed to do it quick. So this one's nice because I put down like $125,000, and obviously when I say we, my family, it's not all my money. So and this is one my dad and I were aligned. I'm like, hey, I think this deal makes sense. The reason that we got to buy it is because the Threadtastic business, she would not commit to signing a longer term lease than more than 1 year. She was only going to sign a 1-year lease. Everyone wanted her to sign a 3-year lease. She didn't do that. So my broker said, hey, there's an opportunity for you to buy it if you'll take it with a 1-year lease. And I'm like, let's do it. So we bought it. It made good money. I financed it on private money at like 7.5%.
You said this is 23, correct?
Yeah, 23. So financed it with private money, the balance, and like a $275,000 loan at 7.5%. And the building still made money. So I was like, and it made quite a bit of money where it made sense.
And you sold a single family that was paid in full?
Yeah. So I forget exactly where I got the funds from. It might have just been from cash flow. I can't exactly remember, but we had the funds. So I had the $125,000 that I needed to put down on it. And so then I financed it with private money. It's got 3 apartments. One had been vacant that needed work. I took on the commercial tenant that would only sign a 1-year lease. And then funny story is that commercial tenant ended up staying for 3 years anyway. So I got the deal. She stayed for 3 years.
So there's the Threadtastic. There's a little commercial next to it. What's in there?
The Threadtastic takes the whole build, the whole commercial.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
it's technically 2 commercial spaces. So it's, if I wanted to split it up, it could be 5 units, 2 commercial with 3 apartments.
Did you get that polo embroidered at Threadtastic?
I did. So actually, the funny story is, so this is where I tell people, like, you got to just be in the market doing stuff. I bought this building. 2 years later, my sister bought Threadtastic.
No way.
Yes. So my sister and I are partners. She's the main principal. I'm just the money bookkeeping guy. So now my sister and I own the Threadtastic business.
That is Threadtastic, my guy.
Is it embroidery?
So we do embroidery. So
Yeah.
like, if you guys ever need, if you can see me on the screen, embroidery stuff. So just
we
plug.
might need to get some polos.
Shout out to my sister Lauren. She runs the day-to-day of that business. So like I said, we were just in the market doing deals. I did this.
Do you guys
deal.
do any? I'm sorry. Do you do any like printing as well?
Screen print. We do it all. So if you ever need anything.
So Katie will compare you to we have this other company, but we'll use you.
So roundabout way, like I tell people, is like, just get out there, work hard, be out in the thing. Opportunity comes. Like, I show up every day to work, waiting for something to come. I'm not out advertising. I'm just, trying to make an honest living. Same with my family. Like, we're working really hard.
Let's go to that. So you had said when you were at Sherman, you walked the buildings, and then off mic before this started, you talked about not buying nice shoes, right? I think that was off mic. Maybe it was. Maybe you said it during the podcast. But talk to us about that now, because let's transition into how you manage. Because you said there's some interesting stuff, and it sounds like you grind. Sounds like you probably put yourself through more hassle than you need to, in my opinion. But I want to hear it from you.
I do. So people are gonna hear what I talk, and like I said, I don't say it to brag. It's just like the only way that I know how. The only way that I know how to do things is like through hard work. There's times that people talk to me and they're like, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be hiring it out. I'm like, it needs to get done, whether I hire it out or whether I do it myself. I obviously will try and hire it out, but there's things that I'm like, I'm not the type of person just to like let it go. Like, if I'm walking a property and I see weeds, I'm not going to call the lawn care guy and be like, hey, come here and pull this weed. I'm going to pull it, send a picture of it, and tell him, hey, I was just here at this property. I noticed this. Can you take care of it next time? So I made a joke about my shoes. I don't buy nice shoes. I buy the crappiest shoes I can, because there's days that I'm standing in backed up sewer lines where I'm wearing waders. There's days that I'm out mowing grass because I'm like, my lawn guy couldn't get to it. And that's mainly on my own portfolio.
I got a great lawn guy that'll do that area.
Okay, nice.
He's awesome.
So I'm like, and when I come back to talk about how we manage, a lot of it was on the basis of when we were owning all of our own stuff, we were always just trying to like squeeze out every dollar from these properties that we could. So I'm like, we do our own snow removal. Like, we have a couple clients that hire us. So like, every time we go out and plow our own properties, I cover it with people have hired us to plow theirs as well. So I plow all my own stuff for free. My brother now works with me. We're a family business, not me. So works with me. He now helps me. Like, he does all of our lawn care on some of these multifamily things. Single families, the tenants take care of their own. But that was the basis of like, when we were buying these, we were trying to squeeze the full investment out of these. So I'm like, we try and do it ourselves. Like, I've got people now that work with me and do things, but I'm like, there's days that like, if I can't get my handyman to move a fridge around and a tenant has a fridge that's out, my brother and I are dollying fridges around. So, and I tell people you don't have to do it like how I do it. This is just the way that I learned that I'm like, our basis is always try and do it ourselves first. Do it first, and then we'll hire it out if we can't or whatever. So, and that helped me with management because my sales pitch to clients is always like, I will manage your stuff like it is my own. I will try and make you as much money as I can, and I will try and make sure your properties look just like mine. And I put the action behind it then. People see me out at their properties walking them. Yeah. You know, I don't fee people to death. I don't overcharge my clients. And I don't know if we were rolling when I said this, like maintenance is a big thing for me where maintenance can make or break how a property does financially. So like right now, I can't guarantee this is always how it's going to be, but like maintenance is a pass-through cost. So somebody charges me $200 to go do work at a property, I pass the $200 on to my client, where it's like, I know management companies sometimes will be, they get a bill for $200, they have a markup on it to say $300, they make the spread, they pay the contractor, and the bill is now $300. I don't do that because I know how hard it is to make money owning rentals because I own a lot of rentals. Yeah. So that's what I tell people is as you're looking for a property management company, talk to them about some of these things. Talk to them about fees. Ask them if they own rentals because your mindset is much different. If you have skin in the game like you guys do, like I do, you think of rentals different than just a number on a spreadsheet. There's a lot that goes in between owning it and making money. Like it's not just some dollar amount that you see. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah, I agree. When did you start managing for other people?
So we were managing about 8 units when I took over, and then, like I said, through hard work, a little bit of who you know, I got connected with a family in southern Minnesota that had just gotten into the real estate game. So they were buying a couple single family homes. So this was in my management business really took off in 2021. So 2020 was just a stabilization year. We got things in order. I got bookkeeping software. I got all the platform. I got all of these things of like, okay, as we start growing, this is how I want to do things. Yeah. And then 2021, we kind of took off. We added like 20 or 25 units in that year. Same thing with 2022. I had a client just through like word of mouth referral, we were getting clients. But then I got connected with a client whose family owns a successful business in southern Minnesota, and they were looking to get into real estate just a little bit different. They wanted to diversify a little bit. So they started buying single family homes, and now have amassed a portfolio of like 80 some units.
And you manage all those?
Manage all those.
So how many units are we at right now?
So for others? For others, it's about 150 units.
Okay.
So a couple, something that I think you said, or something you said kind of reminded me of kind of something like, we talked about the handyman, and not all handymen are good at all jobs. Mm-hmm. I think that not all property managers are good at all property types, right? Or all tenant types, right? So like, for example, you might know, you might know like Section 8 tenants really well. Like, right, we know Grigori knows Section 8 really well. That's not the same management as the A-class building in downtown Minneapolis, for example, right, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that matching the property manager, the property type is important. I know it is in big commercial. When you're talking like 100-unit buildings, that was our big mistake. We took the highest rated property manager in Louisville, and they were incredibly awful at managing our property because they weren't set up for it. They did B and A class only, and we had a D+, you know?
And you have to align. Like the property manager and the client, the owner have to align with what you want out of the property. Like I've got people that bring stuff to me. Like I took over 48 units in Weierke, a 48 unit building last fall. And it's been the most rewarding, but like the hardest I've ever worked. I'm like, we were non-renewing tenants. My client and I sat down before though and said like, okay, he's like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need from you to like make this make sense. I make a good amount of money managing it, but also it was like, him and I had to align, saying like, this is what I need
is the
from
plan,
you.
yeah.
This is how I need to get this stabilized. Are you in this with me? And the answer is always yes. You need your property manager to be in line with you, because if you're not, the client isn't going to be happy. You're not going to be happy because you didn't have the right expectation going into it. And that's why when I get brought deals for clients, they're like, hey, this is what I'm doing. A lot of times they're asking me, will you manage this for me? They're not expecting me to do it. Because like I've got clients that have brought me down to Rochester, Albert Lee, they're flipping deals, they're doing things. So I'm like, for me right now, the answer is always yes. So I got to give a shout out to my wife. She is always, I'm getting some brownie points, but my wife is always like, go out and hit it hard. Like she's never asking me when I'm going to be home. She lets me kind of run wild, which I need to right now. Like I'm 31. I'm going to hit this hard for my goal is like in 10 years. When I'm 40 years old, I'm going to see where we're at. If this is hopefully a business that has employees and is a full legit property management company. But I also tell clients like, hey, if you guys want to keep growing, I'm your guy. I don't need to go and add 10 employees. I don't need the hassle. I can maintain everything right now efficiently with what I'm doing right now with my dad, my brother, and I.
So total units between the managed and your own, what does that look
200.
like? 200.
It's a little
and
north of 200.
How many people, and I'm talking accounting everything, your whole organization, not just employees, but you, your family, how many people does it take you to run 200 units?
You guys are going to, it's 3. It's my dad, my brother, and I.
Wow.
My phone,
and your wife for
and
Booker,
my wife,
right? So 4.
Yeah, so my wife holds down the fort for me in my personal life. She takes care of everything. But like I'm running like a madman right now. I'm on the road every day. I'm showing apartments. My brother and I are showing apartments.
You guys are doing all the leasing too?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So like,
how many? You mentioned showings. How many showings do you do a day then? What's normal during the
this
summer?
is the busy time. So like usually every night we're showing. So I'm like, and luckily now it's slowed down. Last month we rented like 4 apartments, but I'm like, we're out and we've gotten strategic now where it's like we go to a property in like an hour window. So we'll schedule 4 showings in an hour, 15-minute intervals. It's like this, boom, 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 boom. We go like Wasika, I schedule 4 in an hour and once every couple days. That building, like I said, has been a lot of work because we're turning over units like crazy. We're remodeling, stuff like that. But we are a lean and mean company.
Let's talk about that more in depth. We do the same thing, although we stopped. When we do 4 in an hour, we actually only schedule them for the first 45 minutes of that hour because then, number one, if they're late, 2, we don't want to stay an extra. We don't have to stay over, right? So, and normally my wife will only do the first 30 minutes. So it's an hour-long time block in our eyes, but we'd stack 4 people in a 30-minute period and pretty much schedule them all for the same times. Yeah. They just don't know it because not everyone shows up on time. Not everyone shows up at all. We're probably going to get 3 out of those 4. I think we can get 75% most of the time, but obviously, that's how we do it. How do you schedule it? Like, what do you tell people? Right. First off, do you tell them that you have the set time?
So I'll quickly go through our breakdown of scheduling a showing. We pre-screen everyone. So we send them a list of questions. Are you employed? Do you have any? And I know Minneapolis and St. Paul is a little bit differently, but like we still want to know of like, do you have any major criminal convictions, evictions? Do you owe your current or previous landlords any money? So we send a pre-screening.
And that's digital?
That's through Facebook. So we do it. I rent a ton of apartments. I use Appfolio, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. I use Appfolio for leasing and stuff like that. But I have a lot of luck finding a lot of good tenants from Facebook Marketplace. Okay. It's a lot of BS work, but...
So you send it through there? Do you just like copy paste or how do you send it? Is that what it is? Okay.
Upload pictures, upload the information, and then we have everything that's on our Appfolio with our website through Appfolio, posts on all the different sites, Zillow, Realtor, Redfin, all of those. But then we do it on Facebook Marketplace as well. On any given day, I'm getting between 10 and 50 messages on Facebook. So, and you're just screening that way then. You're screening. But so then we pre-screen them. If they don't meet the qualifications.
Do you let them schedule with you through Facebook?
Yep.
So you don't make them call you or anything?
I got it scheduled there. I have a running calendar then. My brother and I keep a running calendar, Google Calendar, where we'll schedule showings. And this is where I tell people not to go on a long tangent, but like, you don't have to do it how I do it. I am in the fold on everything right now. It's just, this is how I feel comfortable growing this management business into what I hopefully becomes, I shouldn't say legit, but a behemoth someday. I'm like, I am in the fold on everything, and I know it's not sustainable. I'm sure everyone's talking like, this is crazy. He does all the showings. He does all the rents. He does all this. My brother helps me with a lot, but also I'm like, I am in the mix on everything right now. And I do that too because my clients trust me unequivocally. They know that I'm not just putting slugs in these units. They know like I have vetted them to the max. And kind of on the showing thing of like how we don't waste time is always confirm the showing.
Okay.
Always confirm whether you have their number, whether you're messaging with them on Facebook. I will nicely message people about an hour before and say like, hey, if you don't confirm the showing, we won't be there. So please confirm that you're going to be there. And these are on days if there's just like a one-off.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll say like, please nicely confirm that you're going to be there. Please, we don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
One thing too,
my wife does that as well. I never did that, but I always sent a reminder, but I didn't ask for a confirmation. I think that's a good idea.
But the no-show rate is getting worse as time goes on, right?
It is. Yeah,
you didn't used to do it because you probably didn't have to.
Yeah, we're seeing. But we also, so this is why I ask. We only allow people to book through a phone number. They have to text or call, and that way we have their phone number because it's just so easy for them to hit I'm interested on Facebook and schedule it and forget, right? But so that's something that we designed a long time ago, and we know that limits our showings, but that little extra friction tends to get more people. Plus, if you got their text, we can text them and go, are you coming? Yeah. Right? We're on our way. We're here. You said you were an hour ago, you said you were going to be here. You're not here. Where are you? That kind of thing.
And I give people 15 minutes. If they're late, I'm gone. I'll just say like, hey, you have 15 minutes to like make it. I'll let them know like, hey, I'm here. If you're not going to make it here within 15 minutes, I have other appointments. I've got family at home. I'm not waiting here all night for somebody to show up. So we give them 15 minutes, a window, and if they don't make it, then we'll either reschedule or tell them they have to. It's not going to work out.
We treat it like a job interview. If they're a no call, no show, if they call it, if they even if it's at the time, if they let us know, hey, it's 3 minutes after my scheduled time, I can't be there, we'll give them a second chance. But if they're no call, no show, just like a hire, they're not hired. We actually literally block them so they cannot schedule again. Okay. My wife blocks their phone number because we only have phone numbers. They can never call us, never schedule us.
Yeah, I like that. And like I said, what I tell people that are getting into real estate is like, the showing is just as much an interview for the owner or manager as it is the tenant looking at the property. I beg people, don't get sucked into just taking the first person that has the money, because I'm like, it is an interview. Were they punctual? Are they a smoker? Do they ask the right questions? One that everyone has to like always keep in mind is like, did they talk badly of their previous landlord?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Did they say that their landlord sucks or was a slumlord or whatever? Because I am not one of those things, but there's a good chance that if they're saying it about them, they're probably going to say it about you. And for whatever it's worth, I know I'm not that, but I'm like, you got to be able to weather the storm a little bit of like, if they're saying that about them, there's a probably good chance they're going to say it about you too.
I agree. Another red flag, we've never rented to someone who comes in and like tries to pull you aside and tell you a story, right? Oh, let me tell you about what happened to me, right?
Yeah.
Do you think any properties are like a lost cause? Like, it could be location, could be floor plan, could be like you could turn most things around, right? And you seem to like a challenge. You get this 48 units. There was like, it sounds like you turned it around, but like, are some properties just like, no, thank you, I'm not going near that? And what would those? Because I have some ideas, but
So respectfully, the areas that I am in are like A through C areas. I know as you get into bigger cities, there's going to be demographic of areas that like probably don't make sense. They're always going to have D tenants, and that's how the world works. There's hierarchy of rentals at different rental ranges for a reason. In my market, in my professional opinion, there's no unit that I can't bring back. And I say that like, for example, I took over a building in Jordan. It's like 2 minutes from my office. There's 5 units that are above a bar. So you can imagine what's happening outside. People are smoking cigarettes. There's loud. Everyone used to think that the building was just the piece of crap. So the guy, I walked the units. I mean, I remember when I walked the unit with the owner, we were like, somebody had just moved up. They had left like 5 mattresses. They had just trashed it. And I told them respectfully, I'm like, hey, if you're going to hire me, I don't tell people stuff I don't know, but I'm like, I know Jordan and I know what it's going to take to like get good tenants in these buildings. You got to trust me, and it's going to take a lot of money. So we turned over.
So what did you do?
We turned over 2 of the units. We paint, carpet, flooring. We painted the common area leading up to the apartment. We had to make it really nice. They're unique apartments. They're 2 levels. So they're large apartments. They're like 1,000 square feet. They just needed like a lot of investment. So like I give my client a lot of credit. He spent like $8,000 in the per apartment in the course of 4 months. We spent almost 20 grand remodeling these apartments. The rent went from $900 to $1,075 on the one, and the other one went from $900 to $1,375. Was a bigger 3-bedroom. And now we have good tenants in there that pay. I never hear from the guy, or I should say, he never hears from me. So that's what's nice. There's sometimes he calls me to check in, be like, hey, I haven't heard from you in a couple months. Everything going good. Yeah. I'm like, if you don't hear from me, that's a good thing. Yeah. You should be jumping for joy. Him and I used to speak every day. When I took over, we were on the phone every day, texting, calling. We had nonstop problem. And now, like I said, he reached out to me on my vacation and said, like, I haven't heard from you in like 6 weeks. Is everything okay? I'm like, that's how you know everything is going good.
Yeah. Adam, I want to hear from you. What do you think? I actually do think you're right. I mean, some of it is area, but I think there's some things like there are some layouts that you're never going to get a good tenant. The example I'll give, and then I'll go to you, is I've said this before. I had one where you couldn't get a couch up the stairs, right? We had to change the layout. Luckily, we were able to change the layout, but there's areas where like, you're just like either the furniture won't work or the kitchen is like almost non-existent. There are some layout things that I think could cause like make a property like you'd have to gut it to bring it back or something like that. But what do you think?
I think location is the number one, right?
For sure.
I used to help with this property, and homeless people would go through the dumpster constantly. We had to pay a guy to shovel trash back in the dumpster daily. There were fires all the time, human feces, so there's that. Basement apartments that are just like, you know, like a big ass 4-bedroom in a basement. That's going to be tough. People aren't going to be staying there. I think large units for me, you know, like a 5-bedroom in small multifamily. 4-bedroom is going to be hard enough. Like a 4-bedroom, 1-bath that's part of a triplex. That's going to be tough.
They're tough to rent because, and if people don't know, I guess it depends if it's a family unit or if it's like more of like a young person unit. But if it's a young person unit, meaning like recent college graduates, all 4 of them won't agree. That's the problem, right?
And what I tell people too is you have to set the expectation for the tenant up front. Like I have basement apartments, Adam, and I have to tell people like, this is a basement unit. It's going to be cooler. It's going to be, whether, you know, in the summer it stays cooler, but it's just generally cooler. You're not going to get the natural light that you're looking for. So like I have now learned, because I've gotten those calls like, I live in a basement, there's no sunlight, what am I going to do? And I'm like, now up front.
They're saying that to you after they rented?
We're going to get you a different apartment. What we're going to do.
And I tell people up front now of like these things that might be a deterrent. I'm telling them like, hey, just make sure you're aware that you are living in a basement unit. You have these things, because I'm like, I don't want to get that call in 2 months of like, it's 1,000 degrees down here, or it's, you know, it's way too cold down here. So now I'm like, I'm proactively telling people things because I'm like, I don't have time to waste trying to like deal with a problem in 2 months.
And to fix it later. Yeah, I agree. So I call that like every place has its own personality. That's how I like to say it, right? And I think it takes about 2 years in general to learn the personality and to get everything the way it needs to be after you buy it. I think that's at least what I've found. And so what does that mean? That means like, oh, we've had 2 tenants in here. They both complained about the light. The next person that comes in here is going to have like, hopefully be someone who likes to sleep during the day, because this is perfect for them. If you like to sleep during the day, you're going to love this place, right? Or whatever, right? That kind of thing. Because if you need lots of light, you're not going to like this place, and I don't want to rent it to you, right? And I'm going to tell people that before they even get there, right? You know, that kind of thing. So, and we would tell people on one of our places, if you have a big sectional couch, this is not the place for you. Like another example. You know,
you got any more specific deals we could look at? Any addresses?
So, yeah, we can do. You can look up 116 East Church Street. That's the and that's Belle Plaine, Minnesota. And that's a deal that's the one that I bought in 2021. It was remodeled.
The 5-unit?
Yeah, so it was remodeled in the and
Right here,
yeah,
Jake?
Yeah, so my parking lot there is to the right. But yeah, it's a nice building. I got a garage. So I shouldn't tell people this because this is my cardinal rule of investing in real estate. You always buy properties next to properties you already own. So I own a duplex right at the end of this alley, which adjoins to this property. I brought this property off market. But, I always tell people, if you get an opportunity to buy a property next to yours, buy it, because you never know. We used to struggle with tenants in this building affecting the tenants in my duplex. And that's always been our cardinal rule. It's like, if you're going to own a property in an area, you might as well own every property in that area if you feasibly can.
If you can, yeah.
Because I'm like, you can control the area. You can put the tenants in. If I'm having a problem with the tenant in this building, I text him and say, hey, my tenant in my duplex said your dog is using my yard to go to the bathroom. That's not going to happen. Like, we can't have this. So little things like that I can control. And that's where, that's my word of advice for people. Is like, if you have the means, if it's within your budget, if a property comes up for sale, or talk to the owners around you and say, hey, respectfully, if you ever are going to sell, please call me. I would love the first chance to buy, whether you buy an option, get a handshake deal, whatever. Try and buy properties next to where you own them. So this deal, paid $432,000. I stuck about $25,000 into it. I've now remodeled all of the units on the lower level with new paint, flooring, carpet. I've spent about $5,000 on each. And then we washed the building, did some parking lot work.
So the siding was all there already?
Yeah. So I had vinyl siding. The bones of it were good.
Where'd you get the deal? Where'd you find it?
So the owner actually called me and said, hey, I'm tired. Like, I'm dealing with the things I talked about. Tenant that has been paying. This property had 30 police calls in a 6-month window for I didn't know what this was at the time, but if you're ever familiar with what a DANCO is, domestic, do not disturb, no contact order.
Yeah,
I got familiar with this from this building, and I don't want to make it sound like these deals that I'm doing are easy. Like, they are hard. You have to do a deal like this. I tell people, like, make sure you have the right expectation in the beginning. If you're trying to do what everyone is always talking about, a value add, they are a lot of work, and it is not as easy. I mean, there was nights I was losing sleep over this building because I'm like, the tenants that were in this unit that I had to remove, I mean, they were calling me at 3 a.m, leaving me 5-minute voicemails just to mess with me. So there was things that they knew that it was coming.
Sounds like you could have got a Danko against them.
I know. So it's funny where
that's
I'm like,
unreasonable.
And I hope people can tell now, like, I'm pretty mild toned. Like, I never get mad. I'm never at a yell and scream time, but like, there are times that you got to slap back. So I'm like, there are times when people will test you and you got to be able to hold your ground, because if you get walked over, it's done.
So let's talk about that, because that sounds pretty tough. What was your strategy with them, and what can you get into some details about that specific thing? They leave you a 5-minute voicemail at 3 a.m. What happens? How do you deal with it?
So we were being respectful for them too. Like, I was just saying, like, hey, the unit was disgusting anyway. So my argument was like, you're here on free dollars anyway, just respectfully move when your lease ends. Like, the money runs out. To be honest,
that was the people. That was one who had prepaid.
I tried everything. I tried to offer them cash for keys. The problem is they had nowhere to go. The previous owner had filed an eviction on them because they wrote a bad check. So they had an eviction on their record. I then threatened to file an eviction on them, but it was one of those things. I couldn't technically evict them because they had prepaid rent. So I was dealing with the scenario where they were paid up so their rent technically wasn't paid. I didn't have a lease with them, so I couldn't give them lease violations because they weren't following my lease. So I was literally stuck with them and trying to get them out. I tried to get them out sooner. I even offered to pay them the prepaid rent to them to go and find another place because I knew they didn't have any funds to move. So then what I did is I just went and filed. I had the eviction drafted. And this one is a funny story because I had the eviction drafted. I spent $800 or $400 in attorney fees. And it seems petty, but when I refunded their deposit, I deducted the attorney fees from their deposit. They actually sued me and I lost. I made the owner at closing. They never paid a deposit. These are the people that bounced the check. I made the owner pay me a deposit for them at closing. They knew about it because the owner told them. They never paid it. I got the deposit. I deducted it. And then I thought I was doing them a nice gesture. I sent them back because I had to send it to somebody. I either had to send it to the owner, the previous owner, or the tenant. I sent them the remaining deposit of like $500. They sued me on top of it. And then a judge said because the previous owner's lease did not say you can withhold attorney fees, I could not withhold them. So then I had on top of it, they made my life a living hell for 4 months, and I had to send them a check for $500.
So shout out to friend of the pod, Brad Sheppy.
I think.
He taught me something. He said, "Look, Tim, it never benefits a landlord to have the tenant pay your legal fees.
Yeah.
It only benefits the tenant, because then the tenants, the equivalent of an ambulance chaser attorney can go after me, which I have deeper pockets than them for my money." So he said, keep the attorney's fees very low that can be reimbursed.
It was a waste of time. I should have just paid them the whole thing, and they sued me. They thought they got one up on me, and I was just like, I should have just sent them the whole thing. I wasted time. I drafted up my case. This was all during Zoom court, but I'm like, I had to go on to court. I'm like, these people didn't even pay this.
I would have actually argued that you were entitled to the whole deposit because the deposit wasn't paid by them. It was paid by someone else as a private transaction between you and the seller as part of the sale.
And the judge said,
and it wasn't actually, you called it a deposit, but it wasn't their deposit.
And that's what I told the judge, and the judge said, well, still, the owner paid it on their behalf, so it's just as like they paid it themselves. And I'm like, well, I disagree. But so this deal has been a great deal for us.
We're talking $500.
Yeah, this is something that we'll own for a long time because the only way I'll ever sell this is if I sell the property with it, the duplex next to it. So these are properties that will hold forever. It makes a good amount of money each month. I've got good tenants in there. Everyone likes living there. We spend a lot of money keeping it upkept with like maintenance stuff and whatever. But yeah, these are kind of examples of deal that I'm doing or have done.
So one last thing on this, because when you said you kind of sometimes you have to like, I don't remember your exact wording, but basically you said sometimes you have to be firm.
Yeah.
In this case, was the firm just filing the eviction, or what were your steps like that you?
I was trying to be nice, and I'm like,
But
nice,
when did you get firm? I guess when did you really kind of go?
When
like,
it got to the point that I'm like, they were looking. Well, then they got lucky because, and this is where another thing I talk with people is like, use landlord references sparingly, because I don't do this just out of a karma, but like I know there's landlords out there that are giving tenants a good reference that are bad tenants.
Yeah.
So it's always trust but verify. So, and I say that in a reason because I could have sewered these people and said they're bad tenants, whatever. They had gotten approved on their own without a landlord reference. Thank God, because I would have had to say like, these people are terrible tenants. Like, I wouldn't rent to them, but another company rented to them. They actually left on their own, just by the grace of God.
That's why 2 landlords ago is the best reference, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I tell people sparingly. Use landlord reference. Like, it's not gold. It is not. I have people send me landlord references all the time, and they're asking, like, did they pay? And I'm like, why? Verify on your own. Like, make sure the tenant, shows receipts if they've been paying online. Like, and what I tell people too is use the info at your disposal that you can verify. So like, I use the court record.
Court records. Yes, this is
Court
exactly
record.
what
I have it saved on my laptop where I'm like, when somebody applies, the next thing I go is I plug it in the court record and see, did they have an eviction? Do they have any judgments? All of these things. Like, use the information at your disposal to verify whether, and it's just a calculated guess. You're just guessing that they're going to be a good tenant. So you just got to verify the best you can.
a lot of the background companies will miss anything other than the most obvious. Yeah. And what you're saying is like, so what you'll get from the court records that you will never get from background company is something's filed on them, right? So let's say an eviction was filed, but they moved out the morning of the eviction. Mm-hmm. The eviction doesn't show up on the record because it's, I don't know if it's called expunged by the court, but it's never finalized. Mm-hmm. But if you go to the court records, you'll see that it started, it just didn't finish. And if a guy a person started an eviction, that was a bad tenant. And
you'll be surprised how many people will blatantly lie. They will say, I have never been evicted, and I go and pull it on the court record, and I'm like, you were in a process of an active eviction right now. Like, you're just applying for my place because you're getting kicked out of your current place. So there are a lot of those. It's always like, it's trust but verify. That's my goal. Like, trust but verify. No matter what information you get, call their employer to verify their pay stubs. Do all these. So like this one, grace of God, they left because I'm like, this one, I would have never rented to them. They had just gotten an active job. They had all of these instances. When I pulled their court record to look up who I was dealing with, it was nothing but problems. So I'm like, I knew the guy that I bought it from didn't pull that because I'm like, I never would have rented to these people. So.
Here's another way to verify too. So if you get a pay stub from someone, mm-hmm. in their bank statement, you can see the pay going into their checking account. And if you can't see it, either the check was a lie or the statement's a lie or they have a different bank account. Yeah. One of those things, right? Either way, you want to get bank statements. Most people don't. We recommend 2 months worth, the full statement, not just one small screenshot, because it'll tell you if they have cash. It'll tell you if they can afford your rent, and you'll be able to see. We're more worried about like things like their money going in and if they bounce checks, that kind of stuff, right? We're not like, if they want to spend money at a casino or a liquor store, we don't care about that, right? But we do care about like, do they have money coming in? What they said they have coming in, can I see it? Et cetera. So, do they have their
Jake, we're running out of time here. Do you want to talk about anything you're working on currently? Are you like working on a certain deal? I could pull one more up if you want.
Yeah. So mainly my management company is, and I've talked a lot about like where we are. Our management company's name is AW Properties LLC. We've got a website. That's kind of the next facet of my business. I'm still buying. So if you've got deals in Carver and Scott County, I will gladly analyze them. Like I said, I'm not a market rate buyer usually. We're doing a lot of like value add stuff, but we're really growing this management business. So if you're looking at a management company, we're not active in these, Minneapolis and St. Paul. We're looking from like, I do business from Prior Lake all the way down to like Heartland, Minnesota. Southern Minnesota is really my spot right now. So if you have properties in those areas, as you can tell by being on this podcast, I love talking real estate. So if you ever need advice or just kind of want to talk about stuff, feel free to reach out to me. I can give you any advice. I don't charge for consulting or whatever. I just like to help people. So, but if you get into a spot where you're like, hey, I need help with management, send it over to me. I will gladly review and help any way that I can.
Are you registered for InvestFest?
No, I heard about that. I was listening. Is that with Oliver?
Yeah.
I was just listening to his podcast. Yeah, I will.
I think you'll love it. Yeah. You'll meet cool people and maybe someone will.
It's next week Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
John Scribante too. Yeah. I've listened to his podcast. I'm like, he's a wealth of knowledge, so I want to connect with him. But yeah, no, I'm always accessible. My phone is on me nonstop. I only have one phone, so I'm like, call me, text me, whatever. I am on the phone nonstop. So if you ever need anything from me, feel free to reach out.
All right. Thank you so much, Jake.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're the man, dude. See ya. Choosing a title company is often an afterthought for real estate investors, home buyers, home sellers. Typically, it's the agent. When you sign a contract with your agent, you might have even checked a box that says they're going to set up the closing for you. Let me make a recommendation. Just use Network Title. Insist that you use Network Title. Man, I am in the goofiest transaction of my life right now. Network Title, not the company handling this. And it's a title issue that's throwing everything off. And there was a title company before. The guy that's selling it to my client, he used a title company who completely missed something. And so, and now it's screwing with everyone's money. So I say that to say who you hire as a title company is very important. And April the team at Network Title do a very good, thorough job. Their communication is unmatched, and they're going to give you a discount for being a podcast listener. So come on now, Network Title, check it out in the show notes. So what's going on, Tim?
Hey, I don't know when this is going to air, but if it airs next week, I'm closing on a Burr on Friday. I've mentioned it before. I mentioned it before. So, but the things that need to get ordered ahead of time are ordered. We ordered, new windows and new cabinets for the place, and then the rest of the stuff I've got all picked out. So we're kind of ready. This is probably the most ready I've been prior to purchase to do a remodel. I don't think the crews will be ready to start right away, but our stuff by the time they are ready to go will all be either there or within days of being there.
Can we look at this one? Because we tried to find it on Google Maps.
I don't know if you can. It's because it's not online and it hasn't been for a long time. You can try 429 Stanley.
I think we.
Whatever pictures you see are going to be a lot nicer than what its actual current condition is. It's needs TLC, and I mean the seller would admit that.
This is the right road, isn't it?
It is the right road. Oh, you know what? You're just down the street, though, I think. If I'm not mistaken, you have to go further down the street to actually see the property. But
like this?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, maybe not.
I think it might be hidden by a bunch of trees. But you know what? I think I found it on the MLS. Because we kind of talked about this before.
Yeah, it's a side-by-side duplex, but rather than being like a ranch style side by side, it's I think they call them a modified split. So you walk in, and if you go upstairs a little bit, you've got kitchen, living room, deck off the back, and a small closet. And then if you go downstairs in the basement, you've got 2 bedrooms and a bath and a laundry room and a mechanical area.
And you found this deal, it's like a friend of yours, right?
Yeah, it's my wife's best friend's son that owns it currently, and he brought it to like all the usuals, like both Homestead Road and Chris Lindahl both offered on the property, and I outbid the highest bidder by $2,000.
Nice.
And truthfully, like here's a what I would learn. I love these people, and we're going to go through with it, and I think it's going to work out great. But if I was structuring this on my own, I wouldn't have actually paid as much as I'm paying. I think I'm overpaying slightly more than I think I should. So I can't imagine buying this from Homestead Road or Chris Lindahl and making any money. So just a little warning there. I'm obviously not paying their fee that they would mark it up. So it works for me. And don't get me wrong, I'm also looking at what would be my ideal offer. My ideal offer would be lower, but it's still a number that works, right?
Yeah, and I was just talking to a client about this the other day. Really, the safest way to buy real estate is to buy real estate $2,000 over what 2 other people are willing to pay. That's the safest thing.
Yeah.
If you could do that, because you could buy a house that's been listed for $500,000 for 6 months and pick it up for $4.25 and feel like the man, and you have no idea if that's a good deal or not. But if there are people bidding right under you, that's market value. The only thing that determines market value is people's willingness to pay a given price. And if you're the only guy in town willing to pay X price, then you overpaid.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
I like that.
The reason why I say what I say now, I think this is going to work out to be a swimming deal for us, and so that's why I'm going for it. But I'm leaving some things on the table that I think should get done, but they don't have to get done. What do I mean? Both HVAC units I think should be done. I'm not doing either one of them, and one of the AC units I think will have to be done within a couple years at the most, and maybe even I might even have to break down and do it anyway. But it's not on the current budget. I do have some contingency, so and I'm not doing the roof because it's not leaking. But I got a shitty insurance policy because of it. It's they think the roof is more than 30 years old, and they're probably right. There's no record of it being replaced in the last 25 years at the.
What's
county.
your premium, do you think?
There's 2 different policies. It's just the coverage. It's ACV coverage. So I was able to get a pretty low premium with a low value, or $3,600 for kind of crappy coverage anyway. So it was like 1,900 to 3,600 were my two options. And when I looked at it, I'm like, well, if this thing burns down in a fire, the 1,900 will pay it off and I'll own the lot. So I'm like, that's what I went with. But like, if anything happens to the roof, there's going to be no coverage whatsoever. Stuff like that, right? So I've got some risk on that, but it's managed risk. I know where it's at, and I actually just did a roof for significantly below market on another property. So I know how to get these things done if I have to. But what I'd like to do, my ideal world, is I don't do any of that stuff now. It will cash flow, and I have an opportunity to do it in the future, and I'll be able to do it later.
Does it pretty much look how it looks right here on the camera? Like,
it looks much worse than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is it when it was at its prime. Now it's it's really been deteriorated. Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of TLC. Just everything's like the walls look dark because they're dirty, stuff like that, and just the carpet is really, really dirty. It needs to be tore out.
it's just
Everything's been deteriorated.
You can't find any more bedrooms, can you?
No, there's no way to add bedrooms. This layout is the only layout I can imagine. Yeah. Well, with the exception that, okay, if you go back to the pictures, there is one, I'll change one thing. If you go back to the kitchen area, so that right there, see that wall that's there? Mm-hmm. We are removing that wall completely.
Okay.
And that's the only, but we're not putting in like a bar there anyway. We're just opening it up so it's open to the other area.
There's not going to be an island there or anything?
No. We talked about doing the kitchen as a C shape, but again, I'm really trying to burr this. And if I want to burr it, I need to keep things, that's why I'm not doing everything. I have saved a little bit here or there, but I'm also asking my contractor to take a little less than they want to take. So I don't want to add on things that would then be like, it's going to come out of their pocket, to keep the burr. So
right.
It is what it is, It's going to be a really nice rental when we're done. And the yard is just a disaster. If you went there, you just couldn't even imagine how someone could let the yard get that out of control. And the estimate was $4,000 to $6,000, and I just told the contractor, I'm like, I need this to be $4,000 to make because of all the other things I had to do. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of work here. We're going to be the ones pulling up the carpet, doing a little bit of demo. Again, like just to keep these numbers in line, there's so much needed that the budget is, with contingency, the budget $67,000.
And what are you paying for this place?
$224. And, and I've got built in obviously financing costs and holding costs and stuff like that into my numbers. And that's really what I have to manage closely. If I can get this done quickly, I'm going to be able to burr it like a true burr, like get all my money back, everything else. But it's all going to be based on how quick we do it and if we stay on budget. Within the 67, I'm fine.
Your ARV is basically $350. You could get a higher appraisal. But if you listed this place for sale, it's worth $350. I've got a perfect comp for you, which will be closing in a week. It's a listing of ours on King. Perfect comp. Okay. And that's going to close at $352, God willing.
That kind of hurts my refi because I had another comp that was 4.25 side by side. The catch is that was a one level side by side. So I discounted it going, okay, well, I'm not going to get that, right? And I was looking for appraisal, not for sale, but I was hoping I could get $395 because take $30,000 off because of the style of home as opposed to, but the side by side was worth a lot more, so that's what I was hoping. Most of the other stuff in the area though, I agree $350 is the range. So if it's a perfect comp, disappointing, but it is what it is.
If you're listening, it doesn't have a garage, my comp. Okay. So that's going to help you a little bit. Well, there's, I don't know.
In mine, when it's done, everything you can see and touch will look nice. It'll be some of the underpinnings that we're not doing, which I know how to do. I can do them one at a time, that kind of stuff. I can do one HVAC at a time as they are needed, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we go back 850 days, this little triangle of the west side, and then I'd probably do 1940 and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of transactions. I will give you that. I'm not even disagreeing with your number. I'm just a little disappointed that I'm like, I was hoping I could get a little more as on an appraisal. I won't be selling it. This is definitely a keeper.
Well, and that's, I mean, if I can be 350 into something that's worth 350 on the market and get most of everything out.
Yeah, I'm looking at being like 290, right? Something like that. Well, plus holding costs, but you know.
Oh yeah, some of these are going to be South St. Paul.
And it might be a little lower because that 67, if I built in like, in my materials costs, I built in the tax. I have firm bids. Like I know exactly what I'm paying for windows, including tax. I know exactly what I'm paying for, cabinets, including tax. I know, so a lot of my numbers are really tight, meaning that, I'm not, and I built in just a little bit of slush into some of them. I rounded up. So if I was paying like, 42 for my cabinets, including tax, I'm actually using a number of 5,500 because I think I'm going to have to give some of that to the contract. I'm going to have to even out some of the labor costs. And so I just kind of kept some of that fluff in there.
Man, still the best deals in town are found on the west side of St. Paul in general. Just like looking through a lot of these. Here's one that was built in 2008. It's a 6-bedroom, 2-bath. Now, a lot of these places...
that's big and new.
Yeah, and it's got a nice detached garage. The roof was like okay.
Although 2008, if it hasn't been kept up, is just old enough that it's going to start needing all the stuff, right? So, yeah.
But better floor plan and easier to work on than your
for sure
1900 build. Better foundation, better wiring.
Yeah.
That sold for $365. Now it was really gross. I've been inside most of these. I'm trying to find your 4 1/4 side by side comp because I don't recall that existing.
Well, it was. But I looked at everything that sold in the last 12 months, so it might be.
I'm going back 2 years right now.
Are you? Mm-hmm. I'd have to send it to you. I guess I have. I had them pulled in.
Remember this place? This was Luthie's listing. He sold this a couple times, I think. And my friend actually lives in this unit.
Oh, really? Which one is it now? What's the...
158 10th Avenue North.
Oh, okay.
But I want to say these people bought it. Yeah, they bought it for $456 in 2022. Didn't do a thing to it. Sold for $515 2 years later.
It might be rather than being in the city, it might be a radius search. So why don't you... Can you check a radius search?
You know what?
Check for 4 1/4. It was 4 1/4 exact. So like, if you wanted to search for,
because look at what I do. I stay on this side of Robert because if you know the area, you're gonna do that. I bet you it was over here.
It might have been. Actually, don't remember. Oh, look at only one popped up. Do you see that? I wonder if that's the one.
I'll just go 400 to 450.
Sure.
But the point being, in the mid 300s, in the low.
Don't get me wrong. I do not think this place is worth 3 1/4. I was just hoping for an appraisal. I knew that it might be 375 appraisal. I wasn't thinking 350. But actually, 375 might not be that far off if that one doesn't have a garage, right?
It is remarkable. This has 2 bathrooms and it's 400. Here's 416. Oh, look, that's Kevin's place. This has... Oh, here it is.
That could be it.
This is probably it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so if yours looks
Yeah,
really...
that is it because that one, if you start really analyzing the pictures, you can see that one is super nice if you go through fast, but the more you really analyze it, you go, okay, I think ours is going to compare. The finishes will be nicer. They'll be better done. They'll be nicer. But.
Well, the other thing is it's 2,700 finished square feet.
Yeah, and it's a better layout. It's a better layout.
Isn't yours like 1,800?
I think it's about 2,000.
Okay.
It might be slightly under. It might be 1,900. It might be 1,900. Yeah.
Well, regardless, if you take, I think you're good at, let's say 365 times, what is you? 0.7. Well, you're a little short, but what do you refi? What do you do a cash refi out of these days?
80%.
80?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work. All right. Well, InvestFest is tomorrow. InvestFest
we
is
should
tomorrow.
put this one out. This will go good with right before InvestFest.
I'll post this on Monday. So, you guys, if you haven't registered yet, you gotta. You can find it on our meetup page. You can find it in the show notes. InvestFest. Tell us, what are we doing at InvestFest, Tim?
A few things. It's meant to be a big meetup, right? It's a big networking event with all the different groups in the Twin Cities invited, meaning like our group of people, but also a lot of the influencers that have been around here. Think of like the Legacy group with Corey and Alyssa's groups, both Lyft and Rebel, right? Which used to be, for those of you who have been around a while, the former Millennial Investor Facebook group. And then we've got some others involved too. There's been a few people that came on. James that was on our podcast. I can't say his last name well, but
Fatia?
Isn't it Phil? Yeah.
Well, James Fatia was on the show.
Yeah. Who else? I'm just trying to think of all the groups. I'm blanking right now, but anyway, they're all involved. We're going to do some structured networking. There's a little debate on exactly how we're going to do that, but we're probably going to have like breakout sections, areas set up so that like if you want to talk to someone who does short-term rentals. Oh, there's short-term rental. Tanya Rooney and Joe, both have been guests on our podcast, are going to be there, and they're going to do a short-term rental area. We'll do some other groups. You and I are going to do some short podcast clips where people can come and tell us either their funny or their ridiculous landlord stories, right? We're going to do like 10 to 15 minute segments with people, very short little content type things. Again, it's where you're going to meet your next partner or potentially network for your next off market deal. So if you want to meet people and you want to be active in real estate, it's the place to be.
Cool. So check the show notes or go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com where you can find everything else. Join our Facebook group, join our monthly meetup, and thanks for listening. See you next time.
Bye.
That's it for today's show. You can visit the TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com website for show notes, tips, tricks, and other local real estate investing information. Adam and Tim would like to meet with you. To schedule a one-on-one meeting with either Adam or Tim, go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com/schedule.